So now we're ready to do an update from the IOOS Program Office by Director Carl Gouldman. So Carl, I'll hand it off to you, sir.
All right, thanks, Joe, and thanks to everyone for being here and having me at your meeting today. Oriana, are you able to pull up slides? There we go. And I've managed to make my other machine in my office work, so I've got talking points for myself. So building off of what Joe just said, congratulations to Barb and her team for submitting the 5-year proposal for GCOOS for the next 5 years. I know it was a long process, significant amount of work, and everyone in each of the regions, and GCOOS is no exception, spent a ton of time getting proposals that add up to higher dollar value than we've ever had before. In the office, we're in our final stages of processing those grants and sending them through the grants management division. That division then has 65 days to process. When it's a brand new award, that's how long it can take. And our hope is that they'll get those done in less time than 65 days. And then, as you all know, we're all undergoing a transition from one administration to another. And we've seen a wholesale change in leadership and turnover with a small team so far in NOAA that's slowly building, and team at the White House, of course, as well. Next slide. So I've got a little lag here, so I'm not seeing the next slide yet on the screen, but I'll get going on the talking. The first thing on my, are you able to get it to move, Oriana? The first bullet on my slide says, thank you for the Coordinated Ocean Observation and Research Act of 2020, and says thank you because I need to give a shout out to Josie and the IOOS Association and all of the members of GCOOS and any other region who rallied and worked to advocate for the reauthorization of this bill. It was an extremely nice surprise at the very end of the calendar year to have that pass in 2020. One of the things that proves to me and means to me is that we all need to take pause for a second and congratulate ourselves, because we've been building this thing called IOOS for a while. Sure, we haven't had all the resources we might need, and all of the pieces, parts are not all put together, and we're not done yet. But we've been doing an incredible job of building an integrated capability for ocean observing in our coasts, oceans, and Great Lakes. So thank you all for that. The other items on this slide are designed to tell you that we're implementing IOOS as we always have. We've got mandates that are listed here. We've got new administration priorities and a lot of executive orders, and new budgets coming out, and new legislation being introduced in Congress. We have the Weather Research and Forecasting Innovation Act 1 and 2, they're nicknamed in NOAA. So the first one passed in 2017, the reauthorization in 2019. And within that 2019, it included Title 3, well, it included the NOAA Water Initiative, excuse me, sorry. The Weather Act version 2 included the National Integrated Drought Information System. The IOOS reauthorization included a Title III, which established the NOAA Water Center and the Office of Water Prediction. And that's useful within NOAA because we're already partnering with the Water Center on connecting the oceans and coast with our river forecasts. Next item, we continue to support the blue economy, and soon we have an Ocean Enterprise Study version 2 coming out 5 years after the original. We also have a project called the Benefits of Ocean Observation Catalog, trying to create an online repository for use cases of ocean observing data and information so we can get a better understanding of what the value to the end users are. Next item is the C-Note legislation. This is still valid and tells us to work on unmanned systems and coordinate with Navy and coordinate across NOAA, and we're doing that. The last two items on your slide have been around for a while, but I've got updates in terms of the Coastal Ocean Modeling Testbed. We have a whole new set of projects in hand that we've done merit reviews, and we're doing selections right now, and we will have some new starts in FY21 this year. And that competition is also open for us to potentially do new starts in 22 as well. And then the Ocean Technology Transition projects, we have a whole set of projects started last year as new starts, and then we were able to select 2 new projects that have just been notified of selection for 2021. I'm not going to list those projects yet because I don't think we're at the public announcement phase for those yet. And that's just a smattering of the drivers that we're paying attention to as we're moving forward. And then next slide. Oriana, I believe, is providing this to you all, and each of these on this slide are hot links, which isn't terribly useful if you're trying to figure out how to get to that link. But the bottom URL on the page is where all the executive orders from this administration are. So there's two big executive orders on climate change. There's executive order on racial equity, a memorandum on scientific integrity, and an executive order on protecting the federal workforce. And there's scores of others of actions this administration has been taking. One thing that is very clear with these climate change executive orders is that there is a deep understanding of the importance of ocean data, information, and science, and how that applies to the issues of climate change and understanding the changing climate. And so that, in my view, is a very positive and helps us to understand with this administration's priorities, we're aligned with them, and we're doing a lot of work to make sure that that's being communicated up. Next slide, please. Uh-oh, I think we jumped to. So within that whole set of things happening, what are our priorities this year going forward? These are a summary of 3 things, trying to summarize everything into just 3 things in that first sub-bullets. So something that Josie and the IOOS Executive Committee, the IOOS Association Executive Committee and I have been talking about is messaging about how we're delivering information for the nation and capturing the climate signal at the coast is a phrase we've been using, and understanding its manifestations. That's sort of a mouthful, and how we message that moving forward is a little bit TBD. So part of our task at hand is to articulate in pithy, succinct ways how we're contributing, and so that we can communicate with leadership and have them grab onto our mission understanding of what we're doing. The other 2 bullets, enhancing ecological forecasting, supported by regional observing science and service delivery. Those words are all there for a reason, right? We do forecasting, it's supported by observations and science, and we're making sure that the information is delivered in a format and time scale where it's needed. Thriving on the coastline, healthy blue economy and services in the face of coastal hazards. That's more of what we've already been doing, and so the objectives and themes of GCOOS all fit within these priorities. I'm not saying that our priorities are different if the words are slightly different. It's just a way to characterize them as we're communicating. And then the last bullet, align, inform, and contribute to coastal resilience and climate services as plans take shape. So I have that on the slide because we're scrambling a little bit internally within NOAA to align with this administration's language of what their priorities are. And it's clear that coastal resilience and climate services are a priority, and how we organize the way we describe our services and what we do and how it aligns with those larger initiatives is still TBD and taking shape, but we're working hard to make sure that we're communicating the value of the IOOS network. Next slide, please. For those who know me, have seen this slide lots of times. For those who haven't, let me give you a quick orientation. The blue bars are the president's budget requests for the 2 ocean service line items dedicated to IOOS. So if you look at 2014, we had a $41 million request, and the green bar says 35 million. That means we got 35 million in appropriations that year. So over time, you want your president's budget request to go up if you have more requirements, and you want your appropriations to go up as well. We've been telling this story for a while, and there's some remarkable level funding through a set of years in 2014 through 17 where lots of programs saw budget cuts. And then in the last 3 years, we've seen increases based in no small part to the IOOS Association and the IOOS regions advocating for the needs of the system and talking about filling the gaps. And in GCOOS, you all were beneficiaries of a couple of radars to fill one of the many gaps in the Gulf in terms of radar coverage. And so that was an initial effort, and we're hoping to continue to build on that. And the 2021 budget of 47.4 million is the high mark in the last 10 years. And we're looking forward to seeing what the 22 budget will reveal with respect to the president's request, and that's due to come out in May, late May. May 27 is the latest date that we've been hearing for the release of that information, so keep your eyes out for that. Let's go next slide, thanks. So this slide's called Looking Forward. Its specific focus is the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. There have been something like 249 submissions to the Paris office that runs the UN Decade, and they are still going through all of those and figuring out whether there's lumping to be done. One of the proposals that I've seen that the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission office in Paris has decided is they've got a diagram with GCOOS in the middle and three flower petals, little bubbles coming off. And the words here on the page are the three that they're kind of coalescing around that will be programs. So Ocean Observing Co-Design, Coast Predict, and Observing Together. And they're coalescing and writing down descriptions of what these things mean. If you all are wondering what the heck they mean, Ocean Observing Co-Design, you all do every day when you work with stakeholders to make sure that we're delivering products and services from our observing systems that meet their needs. Coast Predict is what it sounds like, doing ocean and coastal predictions in the coastal zone and making those predictions available for decision support. And then Observing Together is about integrating ocean observations at different technologies and different scales. Sorry about my coworkers downstairs barking. Can't control them from this angle of the room. So I mentioned the programs for the decade because they're still formulating, despite the fact that June 1 is the kickoff date for the decade. So the message for you all is don't panic. There will be lots of discussion at the global level about what the decade is going to include. And one of the things that's going to happen is they're going to have a series of Ocean Decade Laboratories, which will be 2-day events for each of the 7 theme areas of the Ocean Decade. So Predicted Ocean, for instance, is having its laboratory in September on the 15th and 16th. So I'm on the committee that's planning that laboratory, and we're putting together agendas for those 2 days right now and trying to design that program to be helpful to advance the discussions. So my objective will be to make sure that IOOS is invited to the table, has a seat at the table as the decade gets formulated a little bit deeper, and we'll pay attention to that over the years to come. That's probably good for that slide. Next slide, Oriana, and I'm paying attention to time so we have time for Q&A. So there's so many things that GCOOS does well, and I just put a couple things on here as thank yous. This is not a comprehensive list, so if your name or thing is not on here, please don't take offense. But I wanted to give a shout out to GCOOS for picking up and taking over the data management for the notice to lessees data from the oil and gas platforms in the Gulf of Mexico, and that's in process right now. And Philemon and Barb have done a great job of working with National Data Buoy Center and picking up this capability to accept shared data from our private partners required by the notice to lessees from BSEE. More to come as we transition that into GCOOS fully, but I think it's evidence of GCOOS's standing and importance that you're able to pick up this function for the network, so thank you. Also, your leadership within GCOOS and on harmful algal bloom observing network, and then the increase in 21 that includes a Gulf of Mexico testbed for harmful algal bloom observing. So there's lots of activities there, and I'm glad to see Sakura, Deborah, and Abby and company on the line today, and we're having Barb and Deborah are working to make sure that we're building a good plan that works for all of Florida as well. And so thank you for that, and more to come on that as we go as well. And then finally, Underwater Glider Users Group. It's great to have Bill Lynch there and to be moving that group along, which is an international body that's coordinating glider work across the nation and the globe. But we're able to plug it into what's going on within GCOOS and the C-Note legislation I mentioned before and things like that. And having GCOOS host that the glider coordinator function that Bill is filling right now is great. So thank you for that. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to hit on something that Joe talked about, is talking about the 21 hurricane glider season. This is a one-slide summary of last year's hurricane glider season. And so it's a little bit off format on the right side, but we had 3,343 glider days last year, and that's a 59% increase over the year before. And we had 163,000 GTS profiles, which is a 51% increase over the year before. And so that is in no small part due to the Navy loaned gliders, which are represented on the screen in the yellow squiggly lines where the gliders operated. And then the cyan colored squiggly lines are NOAA and NOAA partner glider lines. And then one of my favorite is the other mission gliders, the OMG gliders, are in the green squiggly lines. And what that means is gliders that might be out for purposes other than hurricane missions, but if they're in the vicinity of a hurricane, their temperature salinity profiles are certainly available for use by the scientists that are reviewing those data as it relates to hurricane intensity forecasts and formulation. And so we're very glad to have GCOOS involved with this project. We've been building the partnership over time. It is maturing and moving along, and I'm really happy about it, but there's still tons to do, and there are certainly a lot of players, and it's not simple. Next slide, Oriana. I borrowed these slides from Kathy Bailey and Ben LaCour, and in the slide deck summarizing 2020 that I just showed you, the next slide talks about the partnerships that make it possible. And so this is a 4-month-old slide, and the GCOOS partnership list might not be fully up to date. So if I'm missing acronyms that need to be in there, then Carrie can help me get it updated, and Bill can help me get it updated as well. But I wanted to show you this because we've got 4 different regions, whole sets of partners. We've got the National Glider Data Assembly Center. And so this is a team sport, and it's IOOS at its best, using multiple technologies, trying to bring observing and science to bear on problems that impact society. And so I wanted to give you a shout out and look forward to the 21 season. And hopefully we'll have fewer storms hitting the Gulf of Mexico, but that's not something we have much control over. So if they are coming, I hope we have observations in the water to capture the signal. And with that, I will stop. That was a quick fly through, and I've definitely hoped to give you some time to ask me some questions.
Thanks, Carl. I appreciate it. Let me start off with a question for you. You may or may not have the crystal ball. Do you have any idea when there may be a confirmation hearing for Dr. Spinrad as the new NOAA administrator?
Shoot, I heard the answer to that question yesterday.
Carl, it's this Thursday at 10 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
I knew it was soon.
Very good.
I was laughing, Joe, because the notes are on the iPad that I'm using now. So I was trying to figure out how can I look that up.
Yeah, for those of you that do not know Dr. Spinrad, this is definitely, I think, good news for GCOOS and IOOS in general. He is born and bred with NOAA. He's been, I believe, was the director of OAR. He was the technical director for the oceanographer for the Navy for several years. He was, but I certainly don't have his bio off the top of my head, but he knows NOAA inside out, and I think there will be a very minimal learning curve, if anything, if any, rather, with Dr. Spinrad once he gets his confirmation in place. And I certainly, I'm not a Washington insider, but I would not think there will be any problems with his being confirmed.
Fun fact is Rick Spinrad was head of the Ocean Service in 2003 when I moved up to Maryland to work for him on the NOAA Ocean Council for the U.S. Commission on Ocean Policy report release. And a year later, I was hired as the first federal employee for IOOS by Rick Spinrad. So yeah. He definitely has IOOS in his bones and blood. And if he gets confirmed, we're going to use that knowledge and experience to get him to help us move it forward.
Yeah, certainly a good news for IOOS, I think. All right, other questions?
Hi, Carl. This is Jen from GCOOS. I have a question here from Stephen Howden. And he asks, will the UN Decade Labs be virtual?
Yes. In fact, what we're trying to do too is figure out how to schedule them so that they can rotate sort of across time zones around the world. So I think we'll try to set it up so that, Europe and Africa might have some events, and then we have some events for the Americas, and then events for the Pacific. And so some of those might be redundant. But we're in the design phase right now. So I've seen 2 drafts of schematics of how we could do the program, and I have a meeting this Friday, so I'll have more knowledge soon.
Other questions?
Hey, Carl, this is Eric Milbrandt, and I just wondered how often the IOOS bill needs reauthorization. Is that every year, every 5 years?
Josie, do you remember the term? It's usually in the legislation itself, and I can't remember the years for the CORA.
Yeah, it takes about 7 years to reauthorize, but it's required every 5 years. So we started 2 years ago to try and reauthorize again. So it's up every 5 years.
I think Barb has a chat question.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea when you'll get back into the office in Silver Spring?
Yeah, that's a good question. The short answer is no. The longer answer is we're not being pressured to do anything too fast. We're trying to take a slow science-based approach. We have some challenges with respect to vaccines in terms of the legal authorities to ask and hold information about vaccine status right now. Some of the parts of NOAA have different authorities and different rules, therefore. So if we're not allowed to ask about vaccination status and we're not allowed to track vaccine status, it's a little hard to infuse that data into our decision making. So that's not ideal. So we're waiting for Department of Commerce to sort through some of that stuff. However, we've been 100% telework for the whole year. We don't have a lot of pressure to get back into the office. So I think Barb, if I had to make my best guess, I think we might start to trickle back a little bit in June and maybe a little bit more in July, and think we'll be more to normal by September, but that's just speculation without a lot of data behind it.
And sort of the same thing with travel.
Yeah.
Yeah, travel's trickier because they impose a rule that I completely disagree with, but I don't get to make all the rules about our travel dollars. And so we took all dollars out of travel plans. So if I'm allowed to travel in the end of August, I'm not gonna have any money. So we're unlikely to do much travel before the end of September.
Yeah, that's good to know, Carl, because one of our topics toward the end of tomorrow, I believe, will be planning for our fall meeting. And of course, the big question is virtual or in person, but that's not real optimistic. If late September, maybe the earliest.
Yeah, and my problem is that they said they were going to take all of our travel dollars that we didn't use that were in that object class if we planned them there. And so that's just stupid for me to leave any money on the table for travel I might do at the end of the year, but that kind of limits me if we actually could travel in September.
Amazing.
I will seek to find out if there's a little, like, if we can move money into that category to have a little bit of that option, but haven't explored that yet.
Yeah, okay. Anyone else? It's a great opportunity. You have Carl right here. I'm sure there are questions in your minds. Don't be shy.
Carl, this is Pat Hogan. The $47 million for FY21, that's passed already, is that correct?
That's passed already?
Yeah, that 21 budget is solid. I mean, it's determined.
Yes, it is determined. However, for GCOOS, for instance, GCOOS doesn't have money from us for 21 yet. So
it's still filtering through all the various.
We're still executing those dollars, and they haven't been received by our partners yet.
Right. Okay. But the overall numbers, it is what it is. So.
Right. Which is
Yep.
Yeah, which is why they're on my slides publicly shown.
It's good. Yeah. No, that's a good number. All right. Thanks.
Carl, have you had an opportunity to meet the new commander of the Naval Meteorology and Oceanography Command yet, Ron Perret?
Yes, I happened to meet Ron back a couple years ago in Rhode Island for the Oceans and the antics exercises up there, and I got to ride with him back and forth from our hotel actually. So I like Ron from the little bit of time I got to spend with him, which is about a half hour, 40 minutes in it. So I haven't talked to him since he's taken over, or since he's been named as the next. And Locon is still in place. Is that right?
I believe so, yeah. I'm not sure when the change of command is.
Yeah, Joe, it's anticipated, and I'm within a couple days. It's in the June 25th to 28th kind of time frame is what I'm hearing for the change of command.
Okay. Yeah, for what it's worth, Carl, Ron worked for me at the Naval Academy. He was an instructor. He is a good guy. He's had a very good career, very non-traditional career, but very, very successful. He's a good man.
Yeah. I have had the chance to meet with the chief of staff and the senior policy advisor for NOAA. So that's Karen Hune and Letice Lafere. And so that's a different question that you asked, but it's been great to be able to meet with them, and the depth of understanding they already have of NOAA's mission is high, and their ability to move things forward even as a small team has been impressive.
Very good. Other questions? We've got 7 minutes. We're way ahead of schedule. Grant, you look like you really have a question you want to ask. That's the danger of keeping your camera on.
I will say too, and I think Carl's aware of this, just with regards to Ron, having been the commanding officer of NAVOcean during the last hurricane season, he'll bring quite a bit of knowledge and support forward for that effort too, I think. So, yep.
Yeah. Very true. Okay, folks, if there's no other questions, I'd like to thank Carl again for spending time with us this afternoon. Carl, please stay tuned, stay plugged in if you have the opportunity. You're more than welcome to stay with us for the remainder of the meeting. And thanks for your help. Thanks for your support. And we look forward to moving off with the new NOAA administrator and new direction, to say the least.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
I will stay on. I might have to drop off at 3 o'clock for a bit, but I will be on for a while.
Okay, great.